Hi everyone, how you doing? Welcome to the PDG Advertising Podcast, episode 19. So, back in the office today. I had to listen back to yesterday's podcast and I don't think it had too many out of breath moments in it, which is great. Today, I'm not going to the gym because I'm basically broken from the gym, maybe hitting it a little bit too hard recently and could probably do with a bit of a break. I think today is going to be what's called an active rest day, where after we do the podcast with you, I'll head out for a walk out by the beautiful Titanic area of Belfast. But it's been a great day today here in PDG Advertising. We've done so much today and it really feels like a lot is coming together. I say that a lot, but it really feels like some stuff is coming together right now. I think a level of maturity has set on us, which is great. Today, we had a situation where we needed to get something done. It was to do with an email import. So whenever you do email marketing, there are certain things that need managed well in email marketing. And this is really, really relevant for anybody interested in online advertising and anybody that has ever taken in anything that I've said about the customer journey, because in your email account you have a certain amount of contacts. Those people are on that journey with your business. That is a part of your customer journey. So being able to keep that right and upkeep it is very important. So today we had a situation where one of the fields on the MailChimp list that we were dealing with, and the MailChimp list is about 12,000 people large, didn't have an ID associated with it in one of the fields, in the field that it was supposed to have in it. Generally a little bit untidy, the overall setup, and something that we're going to work to make better for this customer. And today we got an email with the list, with the corrected IDs and the email addresses associated. So what you do in that circumstance is you upload those emails, and what MailChimp does is it nicely just associates the new data with the records that are already in MailChimp. Whenever I'm doing anything like this, I've learned from bitter experience of the gut punch of sending out emails to people that we shouldn't have, or uploading emails and then not knowing that there was an automation attached and then triggering an email out to thousands of people. And it's not that it's any different than Facebook, but if you do an advert on Facebook and you put a pound on it and it gets out to 1,000 people and there's something wrong with it, it doesn't feel as bad as whenever you send out 1,000 emails that you shouldn't have sent. I don't know whether it's the permanent nature of the email, whether on social is more passive, but it's something that you don't want to do. So whenever we're making any changes to an account, and especially a big upload of what should have been 12,000 email addresses with associated member IDs, then what we needed to do was make sure and have some support. And I've learned to jump onto MailChimp's chat support and outright ask them to help us through and hold our hand a little bit through the process. So when we did that, by the way, MailChimp's customer support is excellent. It's second to none. They really get it. They understand that, they don't try to pressurize you into time. They give you the room and they're experts in what they do. And that's what you need in a support function on a website. So in doing that, they identified something. They said, look, there aren't any automations that are going to run if you upload the list. It should update and not overwrite any fields. What it will do is overwrite any information that's already in there with new information that comes in. If you have more email addresses on your list that you're uploading and you're only introducing one new field, if there are people not on the original MailChimp list, then that will be a problem. So in going and checking that out and checking out how many people were on the new list as to how many people were on the old list, and by the way, we took a backup of the first list to start off with. So in checking that, we realized that there were 5,000 extra contacts on the email list that had been sent over. So the issue that we were trying to solve today had been identified by us a while ago. It was holding up the progress on getting these very important emails out for the customer. They're supposed to be sent early in the month. It's getting towards the middle of the month right now, the 15th of May. So at that point, I was immediately going to go back to the person who gave me this and said, look, something wrong here. That's 5,000 emails higher than it should be. What's the discrepancy? What's going wrong? But I thought and that's what we'd normally do. Normally we'd go, oh, something wrong with that, we need to get it sent back. And when I say normally, that's what maybe we would have done a few years ago. But today, in the interest of getting things done and pushing through and getting progress, we uploaded the list because we knew that the email addresses that were there would be updated and it wouldn't cause any real damage. And we parked it. We said, look, that we're going to have to deal with that after, because that indicates that there's something wrong with the database, and it indicates that there's an issue with the overall structure and something that we're going to help to fix in the future. So we uploaded it, and then immediately flag went up saying that the billing threshold had increased. Not a lot, but the customer got that email through, and immediately I phoned him up. He actually thought it was someone else that had done it, and we were just CC'd in it out of courtesy, but I knew that we needed to phone up the customer immediately, and we did. And it was just a courtesy call to let him know that we were completely on top of it. And it's interesting because we were and are completely on top of it. And I think two things. One, it was the right decision to make the move forward with it, and proved to be the right decision because we're now much further than we would have been previously. And on the call, the customer said, no, that was definitely the right thing to do, and he appreciated it. So I think that's a level of maturity whenever you can take control of things like that and make a calculated risk and say, look, this is the right thing to do for the business, and this is how we want to move forward. I think a couple of things that we learned from that, and not learned, but have learned from doing this kind of thing. When you're uploading a big list to a MailChimp account, if you're an agency or you're doing it for someone or you're just in the role, the right thing to do is to get some help with it from MailChimp chat. Now, that might not be always possible. I don't know if they will be always open to that, and I don't know if we're abusing that service by asking them for it, but they were always very pleasant and they always do it. And it's actually, I think it's better than whenever you do something wrong and then they have to go in and try to fix it for you. So that was an important point today. So one of the learns is take care whenever you're uploading things. The horror story is that happened in an old agency that I worked in before. And I'm really not surprised that this happened. I don't even think that it was due to not knowing what to do on my part. I think it was due to the toxic, rushed nature of the agency. And what happened was, and actually, you know what, that's an excuse. This is my fault, and it was my fault what happened. We uploaded a bunch of emails into a system. We didn't realize that there was an automation on the system, and that fired out an email to maybe 500 people. Just not very professional. And I go back to it. That gives us some authority to talk about these things and to advise on these things and say, look, this is how to do it. Because now I feel like on The Simpsons, whenever you see on the nuclear factory that Homer works in, that this place has been 10 days without an accident. And then they flip it over to 1 whenever they have an accident, or 0 whenever they have an accident. But it's not like that. I think that through our experience of having screwed up things before, where we have a new level of experience and a platform to make sure that we don't do it again. So that's a bit of a journey that we've been on, and I'm glad that we can share it with you. Tell you what, I swore that I would never be going back to Starbucks again. If you've been listening from the start, and I know some of you have, and I know in the future some of you will, you'll remember I had a bit of an issue with Starbucks and them filling up the cup to the brim. Tried take 2 today. Wednesday's traditional bring coffee into the office day. So we got our Americano and cappuccino, asked for a 3/4 cup filled, and it was perfectly done. So well done, Starbucks. All is forgiven, and I'll likely be back there again. Something really interesting happened today. It actually centered around that email issue that I was talking about. And whenever we made the move forward with that, it ended up allowing us to move to the next stage of that email marketing. And that meant we needed to do some really quick work, because this issue has been going on for a while. And whenever you fix something, you end up knowing that it's behind and it's time to move on it. But the worst thing that you can do in email marketing or advertising, I believe, is to rush it and get it wrong. So what we did in the office today was we created some extra space and said, look, this email is going to have to go out tomorrow because there are some additional checks to make sure everything is okay with it. And we kept the client well updated with that. But that's a really important thing. Like, what we could have done was add more pressure into the situation and try to do it quicker than we actually could. And I think that would have created more issues and more problems and ended up causing more mistakes. So it's really important whenever we get, a little bit head up or anything, that we just create a little bit more space for things to work. My uncle, wonderful man, he's a pilot, very funny, David Doak. He has retired to Thailand and he's living the lap of luxury. And something he said I always remember, he was talking about, to be honest, we were talking about an aircraft crash that had happened years ago. It was a recent one, and every time something like that happens, all David's friends all ask him, well, what's your take on it? What do you think happened? Because he was a pilot for a commercial airline he was a pilot for, and then he did freight, so he had a lot of experience with planes and everything, and loves all that kind of stuff. He actually has his own plane now. It's a lot of family information to share for the PDG Advertising Podcast. But anyway, he told me that with that crash, what had happened was they ran out of fuel, and he said that there was industry-wide thing where airlines were cutting down on fuel. Now, don't be worried because this has changed since then, but they were cutting down on excess fuel being carried, because apparently there's something to do with weight and excess fuel and it being burned too fast, and also just not having to pay for the excess fuel, the airlines, and all of these things. You hear in the news about airlines going bust and everything like that, but that contributed potentially to a crash because the pilots were trying to save on fuel, or someone was trying to save on fuel. And what it meant was whenever something went wrong, they didn't have the space, room or time to fix it, and the plane ended up crashing. And I think that's something that happens whenever you don't allow enough time, whenever you don't allow enough space, and whenever you try to rush something through, mistakes start to happen. And you cannot have that. You don't have to get into that world. You don't have to get into that mode, because you can allow a little bit more time into your processes, or allow a bit more time into your business in order to make better decisions and do things in the right way rather than running through things quickly. It's the obvious choice, and it's something that we'll be taking note of for sure in the future. So something that was really interesting today, just throughout the day we were really busy, but I just found myself really enjoying the process and really enjoying the stuff that we were doing. And I wanted to share that. There's no way that I could work this hard at an agency or at a business or for customers if I didn't really enjoy it. And I really do. And I was looking forward to sharing that with you, because we've taken on our podcast ideas, but really just is easy to go through what we're doing and that. But there's something just dawned on me today about how much I was enjoying what we were doing. And I think that's a good place to be. I think that'll come through in our work for customers. I think another thing that happened today was we had some really nice interactions with customers, and something that made them better was a little bit of pleasantness, a little bit of niceness. Snapping at people, or, not being cordial with people is such a bad idea. And I think that in a lot of the interactions we had today, there just wasn't that. There was pleasantness, there was pleases and thank yous, and it was good. And I think that makes things move a little smoother. I've been in environments before where there's not the respect given to each other, and I think that that's very, very important. So I'm looking forward to more interactions tomorrow and throughout the rest of this month and forever, hopefully, of pleasantness and being nice to each other. I mean, life's too short to, be rude to each other. So I think that's important. Another thing came up about kindness is good. We've seen a lot of kindness in the last few weeks, and that has been very important. And I think if we can add some more kindness in our dealings with customers, with dealings with their customers, with dealings with each other, I think that's a really good thing. So that's come up today, so I wanted to share that for sure on the podcast. I suppose another thing that helps with that as well is clarity, being really clear about what you want and what you're doing. I think some of the things that we're doing are clarity of branding, our pillars of customer growth, quality of service, and brand awareness. All of these things and all this communication, clarity, politeness, doing what you say you'll do, and being kind. I think that's a secret formula for success. I don't think that calling it secret is appropriate, actually. It's more like that's just what works. So I think if you're willing to work hard, be kind, communicate well, and enjoy what you're doing, I think you've got a real formula for happiness there. And I think that you can do quite well out of that. So that's something that I just wanted to share today. And it's probably just coming. We're doing okay at the moment. The business is going well. The relationships that we're building are going well. We're growing. And it's becoming a really enjoyable journey. I've always thought about, people whenever they're entrepreneurs or business owners or anything really, people talk about other high points and low points. Very few low points in this. Low points really are more family, if something happened to family and things like that, or friends, or, relationships outside of this. But this doesn't really have low points, because even whenever it's not going so well, I enjoy it. I suppose there have been some frustrations, and a lot of them come down to, lack of clarity from my side. So that's an important thing to know. I mean, it's not all 100% rosy, because there are things, I wish I'd done it differently, or I wish I'd been better at that. But nothing that has ever made me think that it was the wrong decision to open this agency, or nothing that has ever made me think that what we're doing is wrong, or that we should change course. I think we're only scratching the surface of what's possible here, and it's been enjoyable so far. So let's see what this looks like whenever we're 4 people, 10 people, 1,000 people. Let's see how we grow, and let's see how we do. And if we can keep this podcast running for, that time, won't this be a good history to look back on and see how we did it? And the last point that I have here, and the last thing I wanted to go through today, was it's about brand. And I was just thinking about it. I'm really loving our brand at the moment. I'm really loving the look and feel of it. I'm really loving the way it looks across different mediums. I think it looks cool. And I've hated it for a long time. I've really hated it. I've thought PDG, Peter Global, the word advertising, I've never really been comfortable with it. And I'm wondering if branding is just repetition, because I look around at Starbucks and I'm like, that is not, I understand that because there's some sort of connection in my brain with the coffee and the dopamine hit that I get from it, and I see it everywhere. So is that just what that is? Is it that brand repetition? Does repetition equal reputation? Nike shoes, they're Nike shoes, the Amazon smile, the Nescafe logo, YouTube logos, all of those things. Is it just repetition? Is it just the thing that you see often over and over again, and that makes it look good and that makes it look strong? What makes a good brand and what makes a bad brand, and what makes good branding and what makes bad branding? We don't have the answer to that, but we are going to develop our thinking on that over time. We're going to give ourselves time to develop that and work out what makes the most sense in the future for PDG Advertising's brand, and then for other customers' brand too, for our customers' brands. And that's something that we're going to bring to the forefront for sure in the future. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Thanks so much for your comments over the last few days to me personally. I really appreciate it. Look, we'll be doing this every single day. I'll be doing this every single day. And if you want to subscribe to the PDG Advertising YouTube channel, that would be so amazing. You'll get notified as soon as a new episode is put up there. If you want to, I don't know if you can subscribe to Anchor or any of those, we'd love you to. I'd love to know that whenever we put something out that you get it. And I'd love to know what you think, and I'd love you to ask any questions that you wanted to for the podcast. It's only going to be getting bigger in the next while, and I'm looking forward to whenever we're sitting at episode 100. So that was episode 19 of the PDG Advertising Podcast. Have a wonderful day. I am off to the Titanic area to soak up a bit of the late sunshine and then call it a day. So have a great day, whatever you're doing.